Hey everyone, my name is Anders, and today we're going to review the latest test server patch for Black Desert and go over some surprise announcements to do with the future of the game. So let's start with the announcements. G-Star is a Korean gaming convention happening this week, and Perlibus was there. I wasn't really expecting anything from the panel since it seemed they would discuss their latest expansion, Land of the Morning Light, that we already have, but I was wrong. They announced Land of the Morning Light Part 2. They showed a new area called Phoenix Nest, maybe Garmet's Nest, maybe it's a world boss, we don't know. A cave that is untitled as of now, but seems fairly large if we go by that character silhouette. An arena for the Greatest Warrior Tournament, which is already in a bit of lore concerning the Musa class. That is the arena that is talked about in that lore. We also know that we will go into the backstory of the Musa class here as well. They're also working on including the hometowns of Wusa and Maehwa. They showed us a new look for Kumio, one of the characters in the main story of the region, and they outlined how this new expansion will come sooner than Land of the Morning Light since the groundwork has already been done. The last bit of news they gave us was that there may be a new class with the Land of the Morning Light theme to be released with this new expansion. That sounds to me like this is more of a spring release to coincide with last year's Land of the Morning Light expansion release in Korea, especially because they only showed design art and not actual in-game footage. But I could be wrong. We'll know more, of course, about the future of the game in next month's Calpheum Ball. But let me know what you think about these announcements in the comments. Now, as for today's patch, we are still in phase 2 of class balance for the game. That means today we saw further adjustments to many classes. Some got buffed and others got nerfed. So let's go down the list. I have placed all of the class balance changes into a spreadsheet for us to better understand when a class is getting buffs or nerfs and how that looks in terms of the overall balance for that class. Just because a class got nerfed this week doesn't mean it's worse off than it was from the previous buff. So if we take a look at this image, for example, of Sorceress changes, the highlighted parts are all changes that happened after the initial release of class balance in Korea. This includes what we saw today. I made the skill names red if they are bomb skills, so you understand these changes also affect Awakening. As we can see, Sorceress received more damage, and a mechanic change to Blade of Darkness where the number of hits for the skill has increased, but the standby time and animation speed of the blades themselves have changed. Now if we move on to Tamer, we saw again more range for more skills and more damage for Rabam's and existing skills. The increased range should help connect her skills more effectively as she's grinding, where before some follow-up skills had weird small range in AoE for the effect. Moving on to Maehwa for succession changes, a range increase for Whirlwind Cut. Red Blade Divider got a big damage increase at the cost of no longer being spammable on cooldown. That's a trade-off. Valkyrie had a couple of changes to the HP percent effect of their purification skill, and the range has also been increased. Succession Kuno received more damage, some cooldown reductions, and a bit of range increased on some skills. Succession Ninja had some minor damage buffs, but those are actually already live in global, even though they were part of phase 2 changes. That was already implemented for us in global regions. The big one here is going to be the Foxclaw fix to that floating CC not proccing after certain skill combos. Succession Witch also received more damage overall to a lot of skills. And the same can be said for Succession Wizard, again receiving even more damage than before. Awakening Wizard, however, saw nerfs to their previous damage increases, and this is where the highlighting kind of makes sense here. So as you can see, for example, Aqua Jail was buffed by 32% in damage initially with round 1 changes, but they have now been nerfed by 12%. So although the nerf looks bad, it's still an overall buff if you take into account how it was before the class balance changes. So Awakening Dark Knight saw something similar, around 8% less damage on a lot of skills with this patch. Succession Striker saw a ton of range increases and some more damage increases for several skills. Succession Mystic again saw a lot of damage increases to her skills. Roaring Tiger, for example, was already buffed by 34% on live, so now it gets a further 12% increase in damage. Awakening saw more damage buffs as well. Succession Lahn on live received a ton of damage, but with this patch, we're seeing around 10 to 12% nerf on some of those skills. Still very good compared to before, but expect this nerf to go live next week. And Awakening instead got more damage increases and a change to the Taunting Death AP buff. These class balance changes will likely go live next week as well for us, I'm pretty sure, if not the following week. But next week for sure you guys are getting the add-on change as well, which is very strong for every class. We'll go over it in more details in next week's update video, but for now, let's move on to the rest of this patch because there's a lot of good quality of life updates coming. Arena of Solare, for example, the practice mode is now available every day. The maps they chose for the rotation is also good as well, except the ruins. Really don't like that map too much, but the rest I found to be decent. Now, every time you win, tie, or lose in Arena, you will get a new Solare token or Solare token. This token can be used to buy elixirs, essences to craft crystals, loot scrolls, or one-time purchases for weapon exchange coupons, all useful items in my opinion. They have also rebalanced some crystals and armor in the arena, and they have added the ability to create custom matches, which is really good. Karanda and Kudum hearts can now be sold for 500 million silver max in the market. That's pretty cheap for new players. You can also buy more items at once in the market if there is enough supply, which is great to see. Exchanging boss auras is now easier than before. You can do so with any blacksmith, and you can keep exchanging auras for boss gear if you want, or memory fragments if you haven't completed the boss exchange quest and you don't need the boss armor. Void Moretta, the ocean monster, will now appear every hour instead of every 1 to 5 hours. Lara's daily is now a weekly. Snowy cedar trees now look different, so you can tell them apart. The skill UI has been updated to allow you to make notes under skills, so you can type in things like the input of that skill under the icon to help you learn combos more easily. That's really useful. Dice Game will now allow you to auto-roll if you have it open using the sticky UI. And lastly, the skill guide for new players now shows the cooldowns of each skill you've used. Overall, great changes. A lot of what I talked about in the last developer stream is coming to the game, at least the good changes. So let me know what you think about the class balance changes and the announcement of Land of the Morning Light Part 2 in the comments. As always, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.